Hi, this is Amber from the A team. We wanted to spend a little time with you today talking about the basics of Google Sheets. If you've had some familiarity with Microsoft Excel, the transition to Google Sheets should be fairly easy, but we did want to spend a little time talking specifics about some of the things that you can do with Google Sheets if you're not familiar with using a spreadsheet application. So, a couple ways to get to Google Sheets. One of the first ways is if you're in your Drive. If you click on the New button, you'll see Google Sheets. So you could select to create a sheet this way, whatever folder you're in at the time. When you go to the New button and hit Google Sheets, that's where the sheet will be created. But that's one way to create it. Another way that you can create it that we don't always suggest, particularly in our district because there's so many things that are shared with all users. You can go up to the Rubik's Cube and click on Sheets, but when you do that, that brings you to this Google Sheets screen that does have a really great advantage, but a lot of people get a little confused about why do I have all these sheets in here? These aren't even my sheets. I don't know whose these are. Why is there stuff showing up in here that I didn't make? Can they see my sheets? And that's why this is a little confusing for some people. But basically, ignore everything on the bottom because that's going to show everything that's been shared with you, that you have access to, that you've created. So ignore that for a moment. And if you look up at the top, there is a great tool that a lot of people don't take advantage of, and that's some of the templates in the template gallery. There are several different templates that are available in the Sheets template gallery, and you'll see some of those here. They're categorized by work, personal, education, and then any that you've recently used. So if you just needed to create a calendar or you wanted your students to create a budget because you're talking about budgeting, or travel, you've had them studying a region and you want them to make a travel planner for a project. There are some great templates here that you can have them do, and you could come here and just start a new one. But if you don't need a template and you don't really often look at all your sheets in one place, it's just as easy to go to Drive and click on New and create a sheet that way. So that's creating a sheet. But we wanted to show you something that Google has on their site that is super helpful if you're making that transition from Excel to Sheets. They have this site in the G Suite Learning Center that is specific for those people who are wanting to switch to Sheets but have some familiarity with Microsoft Excel. There's a great chart here that takes everything Excel and everything Sheets with a side-by-side comparison so that you can see, what do I do in Excel and will Sheets be a good fit for me? We have moved from Excel to Sheets. I rarely open Excel except to show people how to convert documents into Google Sheets. But if you needed to make that transition or you want to see a side-by-side comparison, this document in the G Suite Learning Center is very helpful. And we've put up a short URL for you to be able to access that as well. So that's something that might be helpful for you if you're wanting to make that switch or you're considering making that switch from Excel to Sheets. So one of the first things that we're going to look at is a lot of people start using Drive and they've been using Microsoft Office products and now they're wanting to try to make that transition. So they're wanting to make Drive work for them, but they're not quite sure. So one of the things that I want to show you how to do now is take an existing Microsoft Office Excel document and put it into your Google Drive. It's very simple to use Google Drive as a storage holding place. So I'm going to open up my files, and I have an Excel file here called Computer Information that I want to put in my Google Drive. Now, you can take this file and simply drag and drop it onto the window, and you'll see how simple that is. And you'll get your uploading window, and once it's complete, you'll have a little success bar there. You could also go over to the New button and choose File Upload and navigate to your file this way. I just prefer dragging and dropping. So once your files are in your Drive, one of the things that you'll notice is a Microsoft Office Excel file has an X in front of it. That's the Microsoft Office symbol for Excel. So I know anything with an X is not actually a live document, it's what we call a static document. And let's explain a little bit about that. When I use Microsoft Office Excel, I have to use the software program to edit it. So if I wanted to edit this file, I would have to download it, open it with Excel, make my changes and save it, and then re-upload it to my drive. Sometimes that can get confusing for people, especially when they have multiple versions of the same thing and there's just a few tweaks and changes between. So what we have started doing is taking all of our Microsoft Office Excel documents and converting them to sheets so that as we're working in sheets, it's automatically saving for us, and every time we access it, it's going to be the most current version. We don't have to download, make changes, upload, download, and upload. It's simply there. So if you wanted to convert your Microsoft Office Excel sheets and start using the Sheets versions of Google, it's very simple. You can double click on the file and it will open in this preview window. At the top of the preview window, you'll see Open With. And if I click up there, it simply says, do you want to open this with Google Sheets? So I'm going to click that and it's going to start converting. That's what this is doing. It's converting it from Excel to Sheets. Once it's finished, it will open up in Sheets. So you'll notice now my symbol in the top left corner is not the X symbol for Microsoft Office Excel. It's the box and the squares for Sheets. Now you'll also notice that it keeps your exact same file name. So just so I don't confuse myself, I'm going to go up here and take off the XLSX, which is an Excel extension. I'm just going to take that off because I don't need that anymore. This is no longer a Microsoft Office Excel document. And I'm going to close that and go back to my drive. And I want to show you what's happened. Now in my drive, I have an Excel copy of this document and a Sheets copy. So to keep myself from being confused, now that it's converted and I've made sure it's converted successfully and everything's in there that I need, I'm going to actually remove this one from my drive. I don't need it anymore. I had to have it somewhere else to upload it to Drive, so I'm not going to worry about it anymore because I have it in Sheets. And if I had to have it in Excel, I'm going to show you later how you can actually export it as an Excel file from Sheets and get it right back to where you started. So let's take a look at actually working in a blank spreadsheet. So if you wanted to go ahead with me and create a blank spreadsheet and go along with me, you're certainly welcome to. We're going to just talk about some of the basics of the Sheets application. So when you open a sheet, it will always be called untitled. So my recommendation is the first thing you do is you go up and title it, because there's nothing worse than having 6 or 7 untitled spreadsheets in your Google Drive. So I'm just going to call this my sample sheet. So you type your title in. The great thing is it's instantly saving. It's always the most current version. So let's take a look at Sheets. One distinction that I want to just kind of point out, it might be a silly one to you, but when you open up a Microsoft Excel document, it always has 3 sheets. Even if you didn't need 3, it's always got 3. Google Sheets only gives you 1 sheet, and if you wanted more, you can add it. But I like that because it's more minimalistic and there aren't things here that I don't need. So to enter data into a sheet, simple. All you do is you type in your information, hit enter, or you can also use your arrow keys. So I'm using my arrow keys and my enter keys to kind of move through the sheet. You'll also notice, just like if you've used Excel before, you have your columns that are indicated by letters and your rows that are indicated by numbers. To select a whole column or a whole row, simply click on the letter or the number, and that will select everything in that column or row. At the top, you have your undo and redo buttons. I'm going to skip across these for just a moment because we'll look at formatting in a moment in terms of numbers and content. But there are the simple tools that you have in Docs and other applications where you can change your fonts and your sizes and your colors. One thing in Sheets is that not only can you change the color of the word or the letters, you can also change the color of the background or the fill. So your paint bucket is your fill color, so you can actually change the color of the cells to different colors. You also have the ability to put borders. So if you really needed to show borders that would actually print, if you were to print it, you can show your borders, and there are lots of different varieties for how you can show your borders. The inner borders, the outer borders, lower, left, top, right. So you can place borders on that as well. Additionally, if you have several cells selected, you have the merge tool. So you're able to merge cells together so that two or more cells become one. That's using your merge tool. To take them apart again, you can choose unmerge. You also have your justifications in terms of horizontal alignment. You can left, right, and center justify. Now, if you have dragged your cell and made it larger, and let's say you don't want this to be aligned at the bottom, you really want to place it in a different place vertically, you have the ability to go to the top, the middle, or the bottom. So I'm going to put mine in the middle here, but I also want to center it maybe in the center of the cell. So you can center things vertically and horizontally. You can also use your text wrapping tool so that if you're typing a lot of text, notice how my cell is just growing and growing, and you don't want it to go across other cells, you can click on a cell and you can choose to do some text wrapping, which will make that cell fit the text that's wrapped inside of it. And it won't change the width of the cell, it would only change the height of the cell. You can also make a cell link somewhere. Perhaps if I put a name here, like if I put Angie's name, and I would like for this cell to link to Angie's website or to a particular place, I can select the cell, click my link button, and actually insert a link. Now notice this can also go somewhere else in this spreadsheet or to a different sheet in this spreadsheet. But I'm just going to say I'm going to take this to CNN.com. So when you click on Angie's name, you're going to go to CNN. And you'll notice when I hover over it, I can see that link and I can just click on that box and go there. So that is our linking tool. To the right of that is the comment function, which functions a little differently here than it does in Google Docs or Google Slides, for instance, in that I can associate comments per cell. So if I wanted to make a comment on this cell, perhaps I wanted to give some directions on what you should do in this column, I can click on that, click the comment button, and what I want you to notice is that if you're logged in, it's going to show your name, so as you leave your comment, it will be associated with your Google account. After you've entered your comment, you can click comment. Now, so that you know there's a comment in your sheet, there is a tiny, tiny little yellow triangle that goes in the top right-hand corner, and if you approach the cell, it does pop up with your comment. But this is a very small spreadsheet. There's not a lot of information. So one of the other things that you can do is you'll notice at the bottom where the title of the sheet is, I actually have a number in a black box. If there were 16 comments in the sheet, it would say 16, but you'll notice when I hover over it, it actually makes the comments kind of come to life, so I can see where those are. Another good thing about using those comments is perhaps my comment was, there's some words spelled incorrectly, you might want to check that. When the next person comes to the sheet, they can actually reply to my comment and mark it resolved, and that comment will go away. So once something resolved, the comment swoops away. There's also the ability, just like you have in Excel, to insert charts. So if you have numeric data and you wanted to make a chart to show your data in a visual way, there is the chart function. We're going to look a little bit at filtering and formulas a little bit later. But I just wanted to show you the basics of how to navigate in your sheet. So let's say you needed two sheets, two or more sheets. All you have to do is go in the bottom left-hand corner, click Add Sheet, and a new sheet appears. Now that you have two sheets, you can also go down and click on the triangle next to the title of the sheet, and you can actually choose to rename your sheet. So I'm going to call this Student Information. And maybe on this sheet, sheet 2, maybe I'm going to put Parent Information. So that the purpose of this Google Sheet is to store student and parent information. So you'll notice you navigate through your sheets by simply clicking on each title. Now, if you were to get so many sheets that you couldn't see them all, there is a symbol here called All Sheets. And if you click on that, it shows you the names of all your sheets so you can quickly navigate to one without having to scroll across. The other thing that might be helpful for you is if you're a color coding person, you can also change the color of your tab in your sheet to a specific color so that you can find it easily. So notice it just puts a little line on the bottom with the color. Some other things that you can do is maybe you got a sheet set up sort of as a template with the exact columns you wanted, you had it set with the formatting and the fonts that you wanted. You can actually choose to duplicate a sheet so that you create an identical copy. So that if you just needed to change a few things on the second copy, duplicate is a great option. You can also delete the sheet if you don't need it anymore, or copy it somewhere else. Maybe I want this exact copy of this sheet copied to another Google Sheets that I have so that I can have that data in two places. Now, once I copy it somewhere else, I'm going to lose that connection. So it's not as simple as when I update this one, it's going to automatically update the other one. It just literally creates a copy. There's also some protection, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's also the ability to hide the sheet if you don't want it to be seen. You can actually choose to hide it. And you can move right or move left depending on where the sheet is, but you can also just drag your sheets and reorder them as well. But there is the ability to use the move right, move left button. So that's about working with multiple sheets. Okay, so let's get a little practice in of doing things with sheets. And if you'd like to do this with me, I've placed a link here on the screen that you can type into your browser. And what's going to happen is it's going to come up and it's going to ask you if you want to make a copy. That's so you have your own copy to play with as we go through this. So this sheet's sample is student data. So I'm going to make a copy of that sheet. And it's going to open up, and here's some information that I can have all to myself. There is a task card here, so as you learn more, I did want to give you the ability to do some practicing so that you can practice doing different things in the sheets and honing your skills to make sure that you get better and better at using sheets. But I'm going to slide that over to the side for now so that we can focus on this information in the middle. We'll save that sheet's task card for independent time later. So we looked at how to enter data, but let's look a little bit in how to work and format your data. So what we have here are some sample students, and then there's some data in here about the students across the months of the year. And maybe this is a rubric score that we're using. And I want to find out maybe some averages for the students. So maybe in August, I want to know what the class average was for that assessment that we took for all my students in August. So if you've done some Excel work before, you know that you begin a formula by entering equals. And if you already know the symbols and the letters that go with your formula, you can do that. So if you know that you wanted to do an average, if you actually just start typing what you're trying to do, you notice how Google Sheets is saying, is this what you mean? Is this what you mean? So I know I want to do an average, and notice it even gives me an example of what is that average for. So I'm going to click on average, and it's going to say, where do you want to take this average from? At this point, I select the cells that I want to use for my average, and I can click enter. So now I've got the average here in this cell, and you'll notice if you look at the formula from the top, it's averaging cells B2 through B9. Now, I could do that again and come here and start typing average, find it again, select my cells, and hit enter. Or I can use the fill function. You can select your cells and actually fill in the formula all the way across, and you'll notice that Google Sheets is so smart, it knows that in column D, you want to average the numbers in D2 through D9. Column F, F2 through F9. So you see how it did that average all the way across. And just so I'll know what I put in this cell, I'm going to go ahead and bold that and say these are my averages. And maybe I want my averages, all of those, to be a light gray, so I'll know that's where my eye is drawn to. So those are my averages. But perhaps I want to also, let's move this again, perhaps I want to also put for each student, maybe I want to average on how each student did throughout this project here. So I'm going to say average student score. This was my average class score. So for my average student score, I can do the same thing. I can either start typing average, or if by now you've gotten it down and you know exactly what that is. So my average student score, and hit enter. And again, to do my fill, I'm going to drag it down, and now I've got the averages here for all my students. To check it, I would click on the cell and check my formula to make sure that that's correct. Now you notice how this is an awful lot of decimals here, and there's a lot of decimals here. This is when we can start using these formatting options here. I like this first one. It's just one decimal place. So I'm going to change this so that I have a specific number of decimal places. So I'm going to come here. This one I already like. So I'm going to decrease my decimal places, and notice it's rounding as I go. There we go. So now I've got it just to one decimal place, and that's exactly the way I want it. So for here, maybe I want to make sure that these are one decimal place, and so I selected them all, and now I have one decimal place there as well. So you see how you can use that formatting. If this were money, I could go up and click the money symbol, and that way everything that I type in there, so let's say $1.25, if I want that to look like money, I simply go and click on the format as currency. I can format it as a percentage. I can tell it's going to be a number or plain text or a scientific formula or a date or a time. So you can tell the cells what is going in them, so as you type more information into them, they keep that formatting as it goes. So we looked a little bit at the formulas on this sheet. So now I want to talk about, sometimes you get data that's not in a sheet. It's maybe in docs format, and it's got commas everywhere, and you just wish you could just put it in a spreadsheet because it's so much easier to keep data separate instead of just as text in a document. So there is a document that you can have a copy of as well. If you look on the screen, there's a short URL for that, and it's a delimited information sheet. So I'm going to make a copy of this delimited information sheet so I can play with it. So I'm going to take this delimited information, and I'm actually going to copy it. Notice this is just a document. I can't really sort and filter and do anything with this data. Now let's get our sample sheet. Again, there's a short URL, and let's go play with some data, and let's make a copy of that. Now notice, remember I copied the text from this delimited information sheet. I copied that already. And now I'm going to go to this Let's Play with Data sheet, and I'm going to come to 2A because I'm going to put some headings up here. I want to start there, and I'm going to paste. Now you can paste with Control-C, right-clicking, edit, paste, whatever. But what I want you to notice is you're going to say, Amber was wrong because this just pasted in here and I don't want it like that. But if you'll notice, there's a little clipboard that appears. And if you click on that clipboard, you're actually able to split text into columns. So I'm going to choose that. And then it says, what's your separator? Now, it found already that I had commas, so it used the comma as a separator, but just so you see, there are other ways that you can delimit your information. So it used commas, and now it has everything separated in this great sheet here. So everything's separated for me, and it's ready to go. So now I can do some sorting and filtering and that kind of thing. Now, let's say that I wanted my students arranged by alphabetical order by first name. So I'm going to select this A column, and one of the things that I can do is I can go up and go to Data and choose to sort this from A to Z. So now I've sorted that, and notice what it did is it sorted the entire sheet. So Amber's last name came with her email address came with her, so all of that worked. I wouldn't want to sort this so the first name shuffled, but the last names stayed in the same place, because then I've got kids with the first name and a different last name. But there may be a time when you only need to shuffle one of your rows. If that's the case, you would use sort range instead of sort sheet. Sort sheet keeps it together. Sort range keeps it only what you have selected. So that's a little bit about sorting. So we've got our text and we put it into columns using our delimiters. So that's something that's really cool that you can do with sheets. So let's go to the second sheet called formatting. This formatting sheet has a lot of information in it, and this is supposed to kind of emulate an information sheet with lots of data. We've got names, we've got tests that they've taken. But I noticed that maybe before I start averaging or getting some information and putting formulas in here, maybe I want to see exactly what things look like before I get started with using formulas. So we're going to look at the filtering. Now, I can choose to do some filtering in my sheet, and maybe I want to filter in some way. So I can go up and choose Create New Filter. And now notice how I get these little boxes here. So maybe I only want to see people. I'm going to clear my selections. Maybe I only want to see people who made a 90. So if I filter by that rule, now I'm only seeing those people who on test 1 made a 90. And you'll notice that my little filter turned green, indicative that, we're filtering by in this column by something. So I can go back and I can actually select all those back, or I can close my filter as well. Maybe I want to see everyone who has a particular last name, so I'm going to clear those and say anybody who has the last name Wentz, and look, there's only one. So we can do some filtering using the filtering tool. Now, I want to show you a different type of filter, however. That's something that might be super helpful for you. So let's say out of these columns, I want to do some filtering, and I want to filter out anyone who has an empty cell, which would mean that they do not have a test score. So if they have something that shows the cell is empty, I'm going to say OK. And now what it's going to do is sort to only show on test 1, here are people who have an empty score. So that can be helpful if you are a teacher and you're trying to find quickly who you need to arrange a time to take this test again, because obviously they were absent and you need to give them another ability to take their test. So that's using something called filter by conditions. And you can see there are lots of different conditions, but I'm going to go ahead and turn that off so we can look at it a different way. So perhaps on this test, I want to filter by another condition. Maybe I want to show everybody who on test 1 who scored less than a certain number. Maybe anybody who scored less than a 60. And I'll click OK. And now what's happening is here's everybody that scored less than a 60 on test 1. So that's something that is easy to do as well if you're wanting to quickly find out information and do a format by a condition instead of sorting by letter or sorting by one specific element. You can do ranges or different things. So I'll come back just one more time to filter by condition and just show you there are lots of different things. You can do it by letters, you can do it by dates before or after, or numbers between certain numbers. So you can actually filter by some very specific conditions. So speaking of conditions, let's talk about some conditional formatting. That's something that can really help you when you have a sheet that has a ton of data in it and you want to be able to highlight or focus on particular areas of your sheet. So let's look at some conditional formatting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these test scores here. I'm not selecting the column headings or the names, just the test scores. And I'm going to go to Format and choose Conditional Formatting. What you'll notice is over on the right, I get a new toolbar called Conditional Format Rules. So maybe on all of this information, notice it already filled this in for me, C2 to F36. It already chose all the cells for me. Maybe if I want to say if a cell is empty, turn it red for me. That's a quick way to show, oh, look, here are all the people that don't have a score. And what will happen, and you obviously wouldn't do this with students' data, but if I empty out something, it's going to turn it red. So it's going to apply to anything that's already in there as well as things that you may change. So that's one rule. So we've said if the cell is empty, turn it red. So let's add a different conditional formatting. So let's see what our rule is going to be this time that we have in addition to the red cells. So maybe I can say anyone that makes less than or equal to a 60, what we're going to do is we want to turn that red, a bright red, not the pinkish red. And we want to say done. And you can even choose to bold it, italicize it, or do other things to it as well. So what that means is anybody that's in this lighter red or this pinkish color, that's going to be for blank cells, and anything that's red is going to show me anybody that's made a 60 or less. And so that quickly gets my eye to some good information. So you can actually set up rules so that as you're entering data, things happen in your sheet. Now we only have this set for C2 through F36, so if I added a student, they wouldn't fall into this. So this might be something that you set up early and you choose all the cells that you think that you will use, but you can also come back in and edit it. So if I added a student and I needed to, instead of go to F37, I could do that as well. And you notice if I change this to 37 and I had done, it's selecting this bottom row, and look, it turned those pink because we don't have any data in that cell. So notice if I had a new student, so this is going to be Sam Smith that comes, and I've had to make him a row. As he takes tests, that conditional formatting applies. So it will change as you go. So conditional formatting is something that can really be super helpful for you as you're setting up sheets to do different things. So we've basically gone through just how to enter data, some basics about formulas, some basics about formatting. But let's talk about sharing your sheet. When you create a Google Sheet, it's just going to be just like your Google Docs and Google Slides and other things you make in Google, is that if you create it, it's yours. And until you share it with someone else, you're going to be the only person who can see it. So you have the share button that's at the top that you can go in and you can share, and you can give specific people edit rights, comment rights, or view rights. Or you can go into advanced, and instead of making it private only to you, you can change it to some other things. Maybe you want this to be public, or anybody that has the link, so it's not searchable, but it's just there. Or maybe only people at Henderson County Public Schools, or anybody at Henderson County Public Schools if they have the link. So there are lots of different ways that you can share it. But I did want to show you that there's one other piece of this that could be super helpful for you if you're putting data into a sheet that maybe someone else is helping you with that. So maybe I have a co-teacher, and my co-teacher is going to give test 5. And so I want my co-teacher to be able to come in here and enter the test scores for test 5, but perhaps I don't want my co-teacher to be able to change any of these other scores. So we're going to look at something that's called data protection. So maybe I don't want my co-teacher to be able to change their names or to do anything else in these scores where I have these scores, but I want this person to be able to type in this area. So one of the things that we can do is we can go up to data and we can choose protected sheets and ranges, and we can add some protection on these cells. So right now I have these selected, so it's already showing A2 through F37, and I want to set some permissions, and I'm going to call this my data. You can give it a name. And then I'm going to choose set permissions. On these cells that I've selected, I want to set some permissions. So I can restrict who can edit this range. Now, there's also the option that I can just show a warning, like you shouldn't do this, but sometimes people don't read warnings, so you can do restrict. So right now I want to be the only person who can edit this data, and I'm going to click done. Okay, so I've said I can only edit this data. And maybe in this column, because this is going to be my co-teacher, I'm going to let my co-teacher only edit what's in the test 5 column. So I'm going to go back over to the protected sheets and ranges and add a new range. Notice if I have it selected, it already pre-populates here. And I'm going to set permissions. And this time I don't want it to just be me. I want to actually give this to someone else. So I'm going to give this one to Angie. I'm going to say Angie can only edit what's in that test 5 column. So then I'm going to click done. Now, Google's really smart and it knows, wait a minute, you haven't shared this sheet with anybody, but you just said Angie could edit this particular range in column G. So what it's saying is you've given somebody permission to do this, but you haven't given them access to the sheet. So it will give you an option to change how it's shared. So I'm going to make sure that I change this because the default is anybody at Henderson County Public Schools with the link can edit, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go up to more options, and I'm going to say that the people and the groups that I add to this sheet can edit. Anybody I put in here is going to be able to either edit or view or whatever to the sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with edit permissions. So right now, if I go up to share, even though I didn't add Angie this way, you'll notice that she is already added as an editor. Now let's stop and think about this for a minute. I gave Angie edit rights. Now, I know if I give Angie edit rights on a Google Doc, she can edit the entire document. She can change the title, she could delete it, she could remove it from her drive, she can delete content in it, she can do all sorts of things. But in Sheets, I gave her edit rights, but I had to give her edit rights so that she could only edit this column. So Sheets has a dual layer of protection. It protects your data, and it also narrows down what the person can edit. So it's a little more powerful editing rights than with Sheets and Slides. Than with docs and slides. So I've said Angie can come in here and she can only edit this. So when Angie logs in, she can't do anything to this data, even though she has edit rights. She can only edit this column because that's all I said that she could edit. The other option, instead of adding editing rights or permissions on specific cells, is you can actually protect an entire sheet. So maybe in this column, this sheet here, I don't want anybody to be able to edit it, so I can actually protect the whole sheet, which brings up that same protected sheets and ranges toolbox over on the right, but this time you'll notice it's in the sheet column. So I'm saying cannot edit. So in this sheet, text to columns, I don't want anybody to be able to edit it. So I'm going to say who can edit this, restrict who can edit this. And I can actually say, okay, I don't want Angie to be able to edit this sheet at all. So I can customize who can edit this sheet and say done. And now she can't edit this sheet, and it shows that it's protected. Because my protections I was setting was on this file. Now we've got some protections on this file. So you kind of see how that protection works. You can protect columns, you can protect sheets, you can protect specific cells and ranges. So that's protections. So now let's say you've gotten everybody to edit it that you need to edit it. You've got all your information ready. You've shared it with the people that you need to share it with. But let's say you have someone who needs it sent to them only in Excel. There are some times that perhaps in the Department of Public Instruction or some other the people that may need it in a specific format. Anytime you are in one of your sheets, you can go up to File and Download As, and you can download it as an XLSX document. So if you needed this document to be in an Excel format, you don't have to keep it in an Excel format to work with it. You can keep it in Sheets and work with it until you're ready to download it as an Excel document. Important to remember, once I download it as an Excel document, I can't edit that Excel document anymore. It's static once it's in that Excel format. You also have some other options. You can download as CSV or TSV files or PDFs or other things that you need to download it as well. So we've given you a lot of information to kind of ponder and think over, but we just wanted to give you some super basic things to think about in terms of using Google Sheets. I do want to share some other links with you so that it will give you some information. There is a Sheets cheat sheet. The Sheets cheat sheet is a one-pager kind of thing and one web page that gives you some information that some basics on Sheets, and you can download it as a PDF or you can use it as this page. Also, there is a place on Google where they do tips cards, and there are some tips cards of things that you can do in Sheets. That link is available to you as well. Also, what I wanted to show you is recently from Control Alt Achieve site, which is Eric Kurtz. He shared some information on some spreadsheet activities for all subjects. So you may want to check those out, and that short link is on your screen as well. So there's some great tips of things to do with spreadsheet activities for students in lots of different subject areas. So hopefully you've learned something today. Thanks for joining us for Google Sheets Basics.